after I finished my PhD. And so I graduated in December of 2019. So right before the whole world shut down. And I moved to Georgia and I was teaching online at San Jose State, where I mentioned that my former teacher, Fred Cohen, was the department chair and he was my first boss. And that was really cool. But it was like an online job. And so I was living at home and I was teaching online. And, I was optimistic that like at some point something would open back up and there'd be opportunities for like in-person music making again. And the Atlanta Arts Council launched this virtual arts initiative grant. And it was a grant to sort of fund Atlanta area artists to create meaningful opportunities for students and their families in the home. And so I applied for this grant with this idea where I wanted to record 5 YouTube videos where I introduce 5 pieces of music that use non-standard notation, that require no educational background in music. And I teach these families and these children how to read this music, how to perform it, how to change it, how to do it if you do have experience, how to do it if you have infants, how to do it if you're elderly, how to do it if you're everything in between. And so I recorded these 5 videos. I wrote 3 of the pieces, and then I commissioned Alex Temple for one, and then I commissioned Kevin Day for one of them. And it was just such an interesting thing because I record these videos, and then I had a Facebook page that was sort of sponsored by the city of Atlanta to where the families would like upload videos of them performing the music. And it was so cool. And, it was all kind of like silly stuff. Like there was like one where you had to build like a found marimba, and there's one where there was this like electronic track and you had to follow this line with your hand and sing pitches. There was one, Alex's piece involved kind of words that were spoken. I wrote a piece that was like a musical Mad Lib, like where you kind of like filled in words that were certain syllables or certain things. And then like Kevin's piece was a piece for a very basic like piano or like anything that can make sound. Anyways, and it was just so interesting to see that there were all these people who were interested in sort of non-traditional methods of making sound. So that then when we were able to get people together again, I thought, you know what, I want to make this a little more secure. And so I decided to kind of rebrand as the Forage and Flourish Contemporary Music Festival. And what we were a week of concerts and educational events for high school students in the Atlanta area, where we invited high school participants to come in for a weekend. And they learned from a really exciting roster of artist faculty, and they learned a concert of 6 pieces that every single one of them used non-traditional notation. And the goal behind that was I wanted to just expose them to, which you've kind of heard me say it like a few times, I wanted to give them the green light to make choices about how this music sounds and to be convincing about it, which is something that like while they hopefully are getting in some way in their high school band classrooms, it's going to be like a small percentage just because it sort of has to be for other reasons. But I was like, well, that's fine. I don't want to mess with that. So I'm going to make this opportunity for students to come and to experiment with it. And it was just such a blast. And our faculty gave concerts around the Atlanta area in already established public spaces. So places like parks and breweries or libraries. And then our students gave a concert at the Alpharetta Arts Center, which was like our big kind of like venue sponsor in the area. And it was just so cool. And then every year we commission composers like to write music. Like you mentioned UGA, we commissioned Peter Van Zandt Lane for a piece. We commissioned Flannery Cunningham for a piece. And then we played just a bunch of other really interesting music with these high school students. And we brought them together from all parts of the greater Atlanta area. And it was just really awesome. And I think one of the most fun parts about it too was outside of the actual festival, which was a blast, going into the high schools like to recruit was always hilarious because, I made sure to kind of like prep the educator who I was going into like their classroom, like, hey, I'm going to talk to these students about some maybe perceived gaps in what they're getting. And it's not me doing a slight at you. It's just me showing like, hey, here's some stuff you haven't had exposure to. Here's why I think it's cool. And so I'd go into these classrooms and I kind of had one of my pieces like from the videos from before, which I mentioned, and we would sort of do it together as a class. And it was just so cool to like watch their eyes kind of just like light up like, oh, this is so cool, like to be able to do this. And then we talk about, at the festival, like we talk about how can you bring this energy back to your marching bands or your jazz bands or your concert bands, and how can you bring this to help elevate that experience? What kind of questions can you ask your like your band directors or your orchestra directors, like, or your chorus teachers, like, hey, here's something we did like at this festival, how could we do something similar, like, I don't know, like next year or something. And it was just a blast. It was so fun. It was like the most fun week, and it was awesome.
Do you have a background in music education at all? I mean, it's like trumpet performance, right?
Yeah, so I wished I had done a bachelor's in education, but I did not. I did a bachelor's in performance, but I think a lot about education in sort of most things I do, right? And of course,
Yeah.
now being like a full-time college professor, it's sort of always like at the front. But back then, I mean, I thought it really mattered, and it was something that I just knew that these students weren't having access to, and it's been really cool to see the future fruits of that. A few of the schools that we had students come from now on their last spring concert always include like a non-traditionally notated piece, which is just awesome. Or they might even ask, how like a lot of high schools like will feature like a senior soloist or something. One of the schools who was involved, who had students come, asks some other seniors like to write like a graphic score piece that they play.
Ooh,
And
awesome.
it's just like really cool things that have sort of gone on, like long since I was there. But yeah, no, I guess formal education background, but I think about it a lot.
Well, I mean, it's clear that I don't know what you're describing. Like, half the people I know in music education don't even think about it like that. Which again is no offense, no slight to them. It's just I think it's cool that you think about it.
It kind of goes back like to what I was saying, having teachers who help me learn my worth. It's the exact same thing with these students. Like students can do amazing things. They're just not told that like it's okay. Right. I remember one time I was talking with a buddy of mine, Gleb Kanisevich, who I forget what the paper was, but he was writing something one time where he was exploring like clarinet pedagogy. He's a great clarinist and composer. He was exploring like clarinet pedagogy from like a sound first perspective. So like how can I give a student a clarinet, not tell them how to play it, but just work on making like the gnarliest, most interesting sounds to them, and then use that as a potential jumping off point for like a more standardized pedagogical process and practice.
Wow.
And I thought that was
Yeah.
really interesting. Right. And of course, like a lot of music that sort of explores those more non-standard techniques, like it requires a different kind of ownership over the instrument, right? Like it's why free improv is like so hard. And it's why like having it really be convincing is so difficult, because you have to know what's going to happen on your instrument to kind of tell the stories that you want to. And so it really stuck with me. And so I don't know, I think about it a lot. I love it. I think it's beautiful. I love making noise. I love all of that.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.